Okay, well, my thanks very much for our panel guests, and I'd just like to open up. We have a few minutes for questions from the audience. I wonder if there's any questions for our panel guests. Okay, so the question is, given the challenges faced by payers, the fact that 50% of many provincial budgets are being taken up by healthcare, and by the way, they're your biggest customer and your regulator at the same time. Is there a winning strategy for pharma? Have I phrased your question right?
You know, I think there is, and I think you know, one of the things that we've not done well as an industry is we go in and we just, you know, we say this is great, this is great, this is great. We want full coverage. It has to be given to everybody, and I think we need to take the time to think back on what our product actually does provide as value, and go to the discussions early on so that they can budget plan, they know it's coming, and be reasonable with the requests. And as my comment talked a little bit about, this is a journey, not a destination. And in essence, the times have changed, budgets are tight. You need to understand that as you have the discussions at a provincial level, and put on the table what's a reasonable request and move from there. I think too many times, you know, when you're out talking to people, we're asking for the moon, and we get nothing, and then we wonder why. You know, if you go and you ask for something a little bit more reasonable, maybe we can get there and build from that, and build on a success. So.
If I can comment, I think, you know, certainly our portfolio, being in the hematology space, lends itself to very small niche areas, and we have been very focused on ensuring that the payer understand that there will be no bleed outside of that, and we have monitoring systems in place that we report back to government on and show that there's no bleed, you know, into off-indication areas. That's created a companion issue for physicians where we've had to create a very open, compassionate use program so that we can satisfy patient needs overall. I think one of the elements that we have to try to reframe, however, is the invest that happens in, you know, pre-introduction of a drug, and then really help the payer and the public understand the long-term societal benefit from a drug that is available in the sort of the premium price period that the payer is going to pay for, and then longitudinally look at the overall value to society. And we're starting to do some work that if you look at even CCO, Cancer Care Ontario, there are, of the 80 drugs that are currently on protocol, only 30 are still on patent, and 50 are in active protocols that are at a generic stage. And if you were to longitudinally look at the value back to society over a 20-year period for a dexamethasone or a prednisone, I think we may be able to start reframing some of that debate. I don't think it's going to happen in the budget cycle, but we're going to have to try to find a way to connect those two. But I think that Doug's exactly right, that we have to start making very tough decisions, and you know, locally we've had discussions with our corporate parent that we will not launch a drug because we just don't see that it's going to happen, and focus on those transformational drugs that truly will make a difference and have a chance.
I think one of the key elements we are probably not always as good as is talking about the entire aspect of care and cost, because obviously we're facing a situation where drug budgets are very isolated in certain parts of the administration, whereas the hospital is usually funded out of a different bucket, and healthcare delivery on an individual level is also funded out of a different level. And I think it might make sense to really, because our drugs, we heard that also in the morning, I mean, since industry has been around, life expectancy has increased dramatically, and that is true to the innovation our industry brought to market. But I think it's very critical that we create an environment together with the payers and healthcare professionals, allows us really to show the impact and deliver on the effect of our drugs, because many times also treatments are stopped, etc., just because of compliance issues and others, and then the payer will never get the full value. And if we can convince and work together with all parties in the healthcare delivery area, I think there is a lot to be gained going forward.
Another question?
Probably more of a comment than a question, but I sort of very much go on with what Kevin was saying and we saw earlier on about the aspects of public opinion. You actually saw the situation in the UK where NICE really has significant impact upon pricing of pharmaceuticals and reimbursement. NICE has been done away with because the political pressure from patients who are unable to get cancer drugs, who are able to get treatment for their eye disease, was such that the incoming Conservative government removed NICE from the issue because they did not want to be seen as a government that didn't care and were able to provide medicine. So at a macro level, one of the most important things is that the industry as a whole, and to some degree in part, especially for instance, makes a real effort to ensure that patients really are requiring or really know that the availability such that the political debate on the other side pushes the payer into a situation where there is a much more amenability to reimbursement.
So the power of the patient, the patient is the ultimate authority, the patient and voter, in the case of Canada, the ultimate, and the UK, as you say, is the ultimate decision maker and the ultimate group who has to buy into the value argument around innovation. Thank you for your comment.
Michael, just one other comment, and just for more thought-provoking for folks is looking at the change in pricing. And if you look at a lot of different industries and how folks are pricing their pieces going out, and you look at Rolls-Royce. Rolls-Royce makes airplane engines. They price their airplane engines not per engine, but how long it's in the air. And is it time for us to reconsider how we have a pricing model that we're not pricing per piece and maybe just paying for outcomes and looking at the question with regards to, is there win-wins? And I think Kevin kind of alluded to that. That's maybe kind of the next level on where we need to go. Not an easy step because it's total change from where we're at, but something to consider.
So the panel's gonna, we'll just keep talking amongst ourselves, but it's interesting. The pre-CADITH conference, International Health Economy Workshop. It's a group or institution for health economics out of Alberta is hosting this pre-CADITH conference, and they had a brief survey, and they were talking about risk sharing, and I was on a telecon. I've been asked to be a commentary to some presentations. I'm not quite sure why, but it was interesting that the path is already being set. Risk sharing agreements. What can we learn from international models? How can we take a look at pricing over the life cycle of a drug and what have you? And then one of the questions of the survey is, what do you think are the greatest barriers for innovative, contractual relationships, PLAs, or what have you, within the Canadian construct? And it still comes back to the fundamental difference in values coast to coast, British Columbia to Nova Scotia, Newfoundland. And I think a fundamental question is, as an industry, are we prepared to come down as an industry on one approach that will work? And again, I think the fractionation is a key problem. I'm not sure if life cycle pricing would necessarily work for one company versus another. If you are aggressive and you need to get into the market and you're trying to establish yourself, you may very well do it. And as soon as you do that, you create a new paradigm for the whole industry to try to address. So that's why I'm saying that we need to really understand as an industry, where do we want to go? What are going to be the things that make the biggest difference? I'm not an advocate of one approach or another. I think our biggest challenge is that we don't have an aligned platform. And until we get that, we are going to be subject to really the vagaries of the various systems. And then we're going to continue to face with this disparity issue, which frankly may be fine as long as we're prepared to live with that fractionated model.
Okay, so with that, I'll wrap up the panel discussion, and thank you very much for our panel for a very thought-provoking and fascinating discussion. Thank each and every one of you, and thanks to our audience. So it's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Shafiq Qadri back to the podium for the second debate round.